Worldwide, every year more than 2 million women are diagnosed with breast or cervical cancer, and around 800,000 die from these diseases. Now, according to the 2012 National Cancer Registry, breast cancer is the most common cancer in women of all races, with a lifetime risk of 1 in 26 in South Africa. Approximately 19.4 million women aged 15 years and older live at risk of being diagnosed with breast cancer. Cervical cancer, on the other hand, is the second most common cancer among South African women. 1 in 39 women in South Africa will be diagnosed with cervical cancer. Now, both breast and cervical cancer are preventable and treatable through screening, early diagnosis, and appropriate treatment. Now, Health Talk attended the Forever Changed Global Awareness Campaign, which focused on, among others, breakthrough technology for early-stage breast cancer, the need for workplace cancer policy, and legislation on medicinal cannabis oil. Now, our topic for today, therefore, is breast and cervical cancer. And to help us unpack this, we have a panel comprised of a gynecologist, head of Helen Joseph Breast Clinic, medical director of Genesis, founder of Forever Changed Global Awareness Campaign, and co-founder of the same Global Awareness Campaign, and Director of Business Development at ILEX South Africa. Now, be part of the show by asking the panel some questions or just simply sharing your views with us. The number to call in that case is Johannesburg 714-6918 or 6919. You can also tweet us at SABC Health Talk or simply just interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show ahead, coming to you just after a short break. I'm Dr. Selomba Daung, and this is Health Talk.
One's life can change in an instant. It is then that you need fast and efficient service, and that is why Asapol created the Instant Groceries benefit for you. Minutes after a claim, an electronic voucher for 2,500 Rand will be sent to your cell phone, and within an instant you can start doing shopping at all the major stores. More than 700,000 customers have already received the Instant Groceries benefit. Get yours in an instant. SMS call to 32813.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Studies indicate that South Africans can expect to see a 78% increase in cancer cases by 2030. It is now more important than ever to be aware of this disease and how it affects you in the workplace. While many countries have the necessary work policies in place to protect employees with cancer, South Africa has fallen short.
If you get a flu, you go to a doctor, you get a certificate, and you're off work. But people with cancer have got to go back to work, they lose their hair. It's only at the end of their lives where they can take time off work. So I'm here to say that we support this cause as a Member of Parliament for many, many years. I will do whatever I can in the legislative space to ensure that we bring about changes so that ordinary people can actually have a place in the hearts of government and their employers whenever they suffer from cancer.
It is important for cancer patients to have a choice when it comes to cancer treatment, and there is a dire need for South Africa to innovate when it comes to cancer treatment.
My late colleague, Dr. Mario Ambrosini, who was a proponent of the medical innovation bill, he himself had cancer, stage 4 cancer, and he tried everything possible to cure or to relieve the pain. He went overseas, and when he came back to South Africa, he realized that there was need for South Africa to innovate in terms of medicine. and the medical innovation bill was placed on the table. Unfortunately, he passed on, and through the Speaker of Parliament and the Committee of Parliament, I was allowed to adopt that bill and ran with it until last year in 2017, when the Department of Health and the Minister realized that there is merit in giving people choice so that they could use whatever form of palliative care that they required.
Besides surgery, chemotherapy and radiation, some cannabis medical products are used in many parts of the world in cancer treatment.
We don't need to research it, but it's a banned substance. We know cannabis is a banned substance in South Africa. But with these amendments to the Health Act and the legislation promulgated by the department, at least now, licenses are going to be considered for people who want to grow cannabis and people who want to manufacture products from cannabis. And what I understand is that there are about 20 license applications that have been received and are being processed, and hopefully sooner rather than later we will have people in South Africa growing cannabis and extracting from the cannabis products that will lead to medicines being made out of it.
Already these products are available online and South Africans are purchasing them.
The question of the so-called black market products, which are still by and large the main suppliers of cannabis products in South Africa. I can advise all of you here today that that is in no uncertain terms illegal. If you buy that and you're caught with that, you could find yourself on the wrong side of the law. So this is aside from the risks that you would also additionally take with such products in not knowing their quality or their medical integrity. Yeah. So my advice would be to rather request your medical doctor to provide and prescribe and undertake a Section 21 application on your behalf, and then you could then source registered product from anywhere in the world and use same legally with knowledge and confidence in the medicine that you're using.
What are the requirements for licenses?
The applicant has to show not only good agricultural practice, but also good manufacturing practice if they are manufacturing medicines. The standards are high, as one would expect, in terms of the creation of quality medicines of this nature and in dealing effectively with a dread disease such as cancer.
All right, so does cannabis have any place in the treatment of breast or cervical cancer? Well, we're going to learn more about that. Let me first introduce our special guest today. Let me start perhaps with the lady sitting in the middle, Dr. Carolina van der Westhuizen, who's a gynecologist and who is going to tell us a lot more about cervical cancer. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Carolina.
Thank you so much.
Right, and closest to me is Professor Caroline Ben, who's a surgeon by profession and, of course, a breast surgeon and head of the Helen Joseph Breast Clinic. Welcome to Health Talk once more.
Absolute pleasure.
Right.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Dr. Molefi Molefi. Dr. Molefi is medical director of an organization called Genesis, and he's going to tell us a lot more about that organization. Welcome to Health Talk, Dr. Molefi.
Thank you.
Right. First, let's start with you, Prof.
Yeah.
Breast cancer. I'm sure most people know, but there are people out there that would want to understand exactly what it is that we're talking about. What is breast cancer?
Men can get it, women can get it.
Right.
We all have breasts. Okay, yeah. What it is a cancer, which is an abnormal cell. Cells are born, live, divide, and die. And then every now and again there's a little tootsie cell that doesn't behave well, and that's a cancer. So what happens is breast cancers, 70% of all people who get cancers have no identifiable risk factors, so you can do everything right and still get cancer. Cancer is neither ageist nor racist nor sexist, so it happens at any age. Okay, women, irrespective, I often get asked, in the old days when I set up a clinic at Barrett, is it a white woman's disease? It's not. It's across the board. Okay, and I think we need to be health and body aware. Check your body, know your body, examine your breasts, and if you feel something wrong, access healthcare, good healthcare.
Before we come to clinical symptoms, let's talk about how common it is. I mean, I presented some stats earlier on. Do we know exactly how common this condition is?
I don't think we know how common most cancers are in the country, because when you talk about national health registries, it means you've had a diagnosis. My biggest concern is that people who are dying out there and we don't know what they've got. So you have to have a confirmed tissue diagnosis. So we're not doing population-based screening. We're doing someone who has come in and been diagnosed with the disease in a hospital where they've registered a pathology. So it may be that cervical is commoner than breast, okay? Maybe that most people are dying of lung cancer and we actually haven't recorded that because they don't ever reach hospital facilities.
Okay, so people watching this program then will ask the question, how will I know that I have breast cancer?
Okay, so I think you must be body aware. So we talk about screening and costs of screening. I think screening starts with knowing your body, checking your breast once a month. If you feel or see something that's not right, you must be able to access sensible health care. So there are very good government units which are, in my opinion, sensible health care. I mean, I've recently had someone who the GP put her on a contraceptive pill because she had a breast lump. It was a breast cancer, so that was not the right thing to do. So if you feel something, we don't have eyes on our fingers, you go and see a medical practitioner, you tell them what you feel, a lump, a gland, a discharge from the nipple, don't squeeze your nipples, it's got a leak on its own, and then we will send you for the appropriate investigations, which can be a sonar and a needle biopsy, or mammogram and ultrasound if you're over 35. It's not the diagnosis to be made by the surgeon.
Right.
So you don't cut to find out what something is, and there's no such thing as an emergency mastectomy. Most people don't need their breasts off. Okay.
Right. Let's talk to Dr. Carolina van der Westhuizen. Cervical cancer. What are we talking about there?
Cervical cancer, cervix in layman's tale is the opening of the uterus. So it's the lower part of the uterus. And it's abnormal cells that's growing on the cervix, and before you get cervical cancer, you get a precancerous lesion in different stages. So you get a normal cervix, and then a stage 1 abnormal cell, then a stage 2 abnormal cell, stage 3 abnormal cell, and then only cancer of the cervix. In the majority of cases, 97% of cervical cancers are being caused by the human papilloma virus. So in this instance, we know what the causative agent of cervical cancer is. Unfortunately, cervical cancer only identified itself very late. So it's not as easy or easier with breast cancer, where it's an external organ where you can feel and touch. You can't necessarily feel and touch your cervix to feel that there's a lump or an abnormal cell. So cervical cancer, for it to be detected, you need cervical screening, and for that you need cells to look at, or you can look at the causative agent specifically for HPV.
So essentially you're saying by the time there are symptoms, it's already too late.
Yes,
unfortunately. And what are those symptoms?
It's usually bleeding, and a very important bleeding symptom is bleeding after intercourse. Continuous bleeding is a very late sign. Of course, pain and foul-smelling discharge. So if you have those triage of symptoms, then you already know that this is too late for the patient. The precancerous lesions, they don't have any symptoms, so patients will not know that there's something going on. They don't have pain, they don't have a discharge, they don't have bleeding. So it's very important that they come for screening, for cervical
Let's speak
screening.
to Dr. Mnifi. Dr. Mnifi, firstly, tell us about genesis, because I'd like to ask you about, awareness around breast and cervical cancer. But first, just briefly about Genesis. What is Genesis?
Thank you. Genesis was founded about a year ago on realizing that there's a huge gap, around the whole management of cancers of all sorts. Obviously, there's a few cancers that are more commonly occurring, particularly in our society, more than others, amongst the almost 200 odd cancers that you've got out there. And we realized that one of the fundamental difficulties in cancer care at all levels is poor coordination. So you'd find that there's difficulties with the primary input into the healthcare system, which is a primary care, the referral system to specialists, whether it be at public hospitals or even, the private sector hospitals. And then even thereafter, post-treatment, there's usually difficulties in channeling patients to the right direction as to be able to have continued care. That's why we find that there's a lot of people that would think that because they have just received a dose of 1 or 2 or 3 different types of medication, that's the end of the world. But do not understand that real cancer care means, looking at the entire of what in medical circles we call trajectory, which is from the beginning to the end. So when we've identified 2 areas where we think there's big problems, we believe there's enough that's been said about screening, but we don't quite think the uptake is good enough. And Genesis has actually, embarked on some strategies to be able to make some contribution on that front. Secondly, we believe in the cancer support phase. There's huge opportunities because a lot of times there's no structured programs to ensure that even people that have survived or people that have had treatment are looked after.
All right, we're going to talk about, let's just break here because we're going to talk about cancer support a little later on in the program. Okay, so for now, we're going for a short break, and when we come back, we continue our discussion on breast and cervical cancer. Please stay with us.
We're going to wipe the floor with them. And you're going to pay my costs for the next 20 years.
I'll see you in court.
You and who?
You don't want to end up in court. But when you do, let Clientele Legal tackle your court appearance for you. We have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS COVER to 32281 and we'll call you back.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the words of our sacred texts? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
This device has been designed specifically to accommodate and assist women in trying to detect breast abnormalities at an early stage. So how it works is basically you power the unit up. The moment you attach it to the skin of the breast, it will illuminate your breast and you will get a visual inner view of what is happening inside your breast. The first thing you'll see is black lines. Those are absolutely normal and nothing to worry about. Those lines, the more you use it, the more you will get to know exactly where those black lines are. Those are simply your veins or your blood vessels transporting your blood through your breast tissue. But what you are actually looking for when using this device is dark or shadowy spots. If you see a dark or shadowy spot when using this device, when using the breast light, your first port of call would be go and see your GP, get your GP to evaluate it, and then to diagnose it.
All right, so this is about screening for breast cancer, and this is what we're going to be talking about in this segment. But not only are we going to be focused on screening for breast cancer, we're also going to talk about screening for cervical cancer. And we still have our two guests, Professor Caroline Ben, head of Helen Joseph Breast Clinic, and Dr. Carolina van der Westhuizen, a gynecologist. And we're now joined by another special guest, Willem Hechter, who's a director of business development at a company called ILEX South Africa. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Willem. All right. Before we start talking about screening for cervical cancer, let's start talking about screening for breast cancer.
Okay.
Let's talk principles. I'd like us to talk about principles and then your opinion on what we've just shown now.
So 20 years ago, 80% of women in the community not in the medical age were picking up cancers bigger than 5 centimeters in size. It took 20 years to drop that to 60%. The stats, if I look at Helen Joseph, said 45% of our ladies present with cancers bigger than 5 centimeters. Simple screening, examine your breast, you're worried, you come forward. Complex screening, ideal world, it would be nice to have screening mammograms and ultrasounds. It doesn't have to be every year, etc. Ideally in a flush-rich environment, we'd love it yearly from 40, but it doesn't have to be, okay? Screening is about health economics. So the health economics in terms of what a country can afford to screen a population. So even if they take it twice yearly or 3 yearly, you want some form of screening. So you can examine your breast. We'd love mammograms and ultrasounds. This breast check is like a fancy electric toothbrush. It's wonderful to have, but you've got to remember to use it and use it properly. And
But isn't that where the problem is, though? Perhaps let's start with self-examination.
Exactly.
All right? How accurate? Maybe it's not right to talk about accuracy, but maybe it's relevant.
So how many people know how to do it
effective
properly?
is self-examination?
It's great, because if you know your own body and your breast. So I think a simple mistake people do is they examine their breast too firmly. You've got to be soft, soft, soft when you examine the breast, gentle with the breast. The next thing is people lift their arms above their head when they feel the glands or armpits. You want to relax down when you feel, so you can actually feel the glands. So by standing in front of the mirror and lifting your arms to the side, seeing if there's retraction in the nipple, seeing if there are changes in your breast. Breasts are like noses, they're all different. Some are lumpy, some are not lumpy. So it's about the habit, like you brush your teeth, of checking your breasts every month.
And
that's
knowing
the
what
first
it feels
step.
like.
Absolutely.
Right.
Or your partner. 50% of lumps are picked up by someone's significant other.
Right.
So the next step is then we have ideal screening, mammography and ultrasound, and then we have useful tools. Now, this is excellent, but it's a bit like an electric toothbrush. You've got to remember to use it and use it correctly and use it every day. So
let's talk about the concept of, I suppose, linked to accuracy, false positives. And the impact
that's
that
exactly
it has
the point.
on the health system.
So my problem with that video is it's not go to your GP and make a diagnosis, because what's the GP going to do? Correct diagnosis of a breast cancer, and that's not because I don't have huge respect for GPs, but it's actually in the hand of a breast radiologist. I see in the last 3 days 3 missed cancers by general radiologists. Young girls where they think it's a fibroadenoma and it's a triple negative breast cancer. So you need to go to specialist units where you have review of the mammograms and ultrasounds and needle biopsies to make a diagnosis. The diagnosis of breast cancer is made in the hands of a radiologist. Okay. So this is great to have, to use. I've even tried it on myself and then think, oh, that's a black spot, and then rushed off to my radiologist, and it's just merely a little fibroadenoma I've been sitting with for the last 15 years. And that's somebody who thinks they know, and I always say we have no eyes on our finger, how to examine breast. So great to have anything that's going to improve and make you remember to do the job and access your medical services.
Okay. Let's move over to screening for cervical cancer. Perhaps before we speak to Dr. Carolina, let's start with you, Willem.
Yes, Doctor.
You have some device there called Self-Serve. Just tell us about it.
Yes, Self-Serve was developed in South Africa by ILEC South Africa, and it was developed to increase the access for women to cervical cancer screening. And what it allows a woman to do is it allows her to self-collect for cervical cancer screening. She still accesses a doctor or a nursing practice or a doctor's practice who then provides them with this kit. But instead of having to go for a pap smear, which many women find uncomfortable, or they don't want to go for it, they can use this kit then in that place.
Okay, tell us how it works.
So the kit is very, very easy. It is basically based on something that many women know, that is a tampon. So it comes in a box. In the box, you have a tampon with an applicator and a bottle with some fluid in it, a buffer. All the woman does is she puts the tampon in for a minimum of 1 hour. She takes it out, pops it in the bottle, and the bottle then goes to the lab for the test to be done. And the result goes back to the doctor.
Let's be just a little bit technical for a moment. What exactly do they collect, and what does the test do? What do
we do is, when you look at this in cervical cancer, the epithelium cells actually, when they break off, they go into the cervix and into the vaginal area of the woman, and the tampon then collects all those cells, and they collect them on the tampon, and when you put it in the buffer then stabilizes those cells. At the lab, we then take this buffer and then we test it for HPV, the causative agent for cervical cancer. And the specific test that we do is HPV mRNA E6, E7.
So basically for HPV?
HPV, yes.
Okay. Let's speak to Dr. van der Westhuizen. Let's first talk about the principles of screening for cervical cancer. You earlier mentioned collection of cells. Just take us through that.
If we talk about cervical screening in South Africa, for many years we didn't have a specific policy for screening. Nowadays, they say before a woman does have a second pap smear, all the females must have one pap smear in their lives. Unfortunately, we don't have mass screening. We don't have a population-based screening in South Africa. We have opportunistic. So a patient presents herself either to a clinic or she's pregnant, and then, of course, we take the opportunity to do a pap test, or somebody is visiting a gynecologist. For the moment, the national screening program states that you start at age 30 and you do pap smear. So that is cytology. So you collect cells from the cervix and you do that with 10-year intervals, then age 40 and then age 50.
And that's in the Department of Health guidelines, isn't
yes,
that so?
yeah,
Right.
those are guidelines.
Right.
Because we look at the effect of the HPV, cervical screening with cells unfortunately misses a lot of abnormalities. But at the moment, this is the best we have. What's also hinder us with that is that you need somebody to analyze the cells. So the resources at the moment in South Africa is a big problem, where with HPV and mass screening with a self-serve, that might be a good solution because you hand it out. You don't need a doctor or a sister to do the pap test. The patient is doing it herself, and then you get a result from that.
What are the guidelines in terms of HPV testing, insofar as the Department of Health is concerned?
It's not implemented as part of the cervical screening program in South Africa. We're looking at that at the moment. It is available in private sector where you can give the patient the opportunity to have HPV screening. They're still looking at what can be done with the masses with the HPV screening at the moment. But for the moment, we still use cytology in the government sector, for cervical screening.
Last question, Willem.
Yes.
Just the cost of this device?
So the devices actually are handed out by the doctors free of charge. No one has to buy the device. You just pay for the test.
Okay.
And that is based on the pathology lab that you use.
Okay.
What's the accuracy?
It's about 99%. So it's the same as what you would have for an HPV test itself.
99%. All right. Well, okay. We're going to have to leave it here because we've run out of time. Okay, when we come back, we now start talking about treatment. Please stay with us.
The story of Guatyu is a microcosm of the problems that continue to plague land reform, where the challenges of redistribution, restitution and security of tenure include not only addressing past injustices and making farms productive, but reclaiming identity.
I had, this belief that this is our government. Definitely, they will do whatever they can do for us to change our lives. But unfortunately, I think I was just naive.
It is the government of South Africa that is owning this land, and it is that government that is denying these people.
Madiba has always been one man who is brave. He says, I'm prepared to sacrifice myself for my people. And when he says for my people, he means not only those who were dispossessed, those who were denied these facilities, the present facilities, like the black people. When I say black, I'm including Indians and Coloureds and the Africans, so to speak. Madiba was always prepared to sacrifice for them, including the whites who thought they were free. They were not free until we are free. It's only now that they are free.
Image-guided cancer specialist. in partnership with Cancer Immune Biologics, deliver cancer ablation and immunotherapy to patients. Areas of treatment include pancreas, colon, breast, bone, kidney, lung, liver, and other areas. Our specialized team uses cryoablation, a freezing technique, together with an injection of a combination of immunotherapy drugs to energize the body's own cancer-killing cells to treat tumors in a powerful new way. Cancer has the ability to hide from the immune system. Over time, resistant cancer cells, shown here as darker, replace the original cancer cells, and the tumor appears unrecognizable. Traditional immunotherapy helps the immune system see the cancer, but still is usually not sufficient to generate a long-term and effective anti-cancer immune response. Cryoablation uses a special device to freeze and kill the tumor cells. This ablated tissue attracts the immune system. The resulting dead cancer cells help to stimulate the body's immune system cells. Then, the local injection of immunotherapy drugs reacts with these cells, and this combination can result in an effective anti-cancer immune response. Combinations of several immune drugs are used, but the main agents are the well-known immune checkpoint inhibitors, Yervoy and Opdivo. The first drug, Yervoy, further stimulates immune system cells to fight the cancer. And a second drug, Opdivo, allows the activated immune cells to recognize and destroy remaining tumor cells. This treatment teaches the immune cells to fight the cancer right in the local tumor environment. These trained immune cells can then go and attack cancer elsewhere in the body.
All right, so that's about treatment of some of those common cancers that were listed. All right, so in this segment, we're going to be talking about the treatment principles of both breast and cervical cancer. We'll still have with us Professor Caroline Ben, head of the Helen Joseph Breast Clinic, and of course, we still have Dr. Carolina van der Westhuizen, a gynecologist, and we're now joined by Assistant Prof. David Salomon, co-founder of Forever Changed Global Awareness Campaign. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you.
Right. We're going to start talking about that, what we've just shown now, but perhaps let's just start with the principles.
Okay.
Let's start with principles of treatment for breast cancer.
So I think cancer is basically, once it starts, is very early on a systemic disease. So I always say oncology is the umbrella under which local treatment starts. So the first principle is no cancer treatment should be done or given if it's not given within a multidisciplinary team environment. So it's not the surgeon wanting to cut and the oncologist wanting to do this and the way. You talk together and you discuss. Each person's different, each cancer's different, and the way their body and their immune system reacts to that cancer is also different. Okay.
So when you say multidisciplinary team, who are you including in there? Because there's
the radiologist, the pathologist, the oncologist, the radiation therapist, the surgeon, the reconstructive surgeon, the allied care facilities, people like the navigators to navigate someone through the care system, the survivorship specialist, the psycho-oncologist, the complementary oncology team. It's a big team. My multidisciplinary team is 38 specialists. And it must be independent people. It's not a tea party. It's not me and you meet once a week and so I agree to do this and you agree to do that. There must be robust discussion and understanding that each person is different. That's very, very important. So the principles of care is that you discuss it first, you have a confirmed diagnosis, you've discussed it with the patient and you go over the options. Some smaller cancers, you start with surgery, you genetically profile them, and you then look at whether you even need things such as chemotherapy. Okay. The principles are you breast save, you give radiation. 60% of all women do not need a mastectomy. There's no such thing as an emergency mastectomy, and mastectomies are choice, and we do skin and nipple sparing.
The buzzword these days is patient-centered care.
Absolutely.
And we're saying that patients should take responsibility for their own health.
Well, I think that
but are they given
take
choices?
They can't take responsibility. I think it's a bit like telling a child that their responsibility to go to the shop and cross the road and all the dangers, etc. I think that if you've got expertise, you must guide people, but you must respect their right to choice. So the concept is you must discuss what the principles, what are the recognized international guidelines are, and then you must understand that people may decide to do things not in the boundaries of recognized guidelines, okay? So, for example, someone I saw today, locally advanced breast cancer, she does not want oncology treatment, she does not want surgery. She understands, and she's heard repeatedly the same story, that the principle and the mainstay for this treatment amongst international guidelines is to start with chemotherapy. Her choices if she wants to go another route, and she just needs to be aware of that she must go for routine follow-ups, because most of us in the scientific field will feel that what was previously known as alternative won't work, okay, but it doesn't mean that it can't work, okay. You know,
well, it's a bit of a, all right.
It's a bit of an oxymoron,
yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Because so you have exceptions to every rules, but you have principles to care. Okay.
Just to say something on that topic is we always talk about informed consent.
Yeah.
So you have to inform a patient of what is available, and then they have to make a choice on the information that they've covered. Yeah. So it is our responsibility to give all the correct information out there, what is the correct guidelines, and as Carol said, then of course a patient makes a choice. She can't make a choice if she doesn't have the information.
But do you have all the information though? Do you have all the information with respect to obviously your knowledge in terms of treatment guidelines, but do you have all the other information on the complementary side? Let's call it that.
I think we talk about science. So we are scientists at the end of the day. So there are specific guidelines that we know are scientific based. So if you talk to a patient scientific based treatment, then that is what your responsibility is toward the patient, and I think that is what we need to do. There are patients who think that they need to eat seeds and things like that, but if they want to do that, then they have to get information about that, but we know that science doesn't necessarily support all those information.
And let's get your opinion on that.
Okay, so we have quite a big complementary oncology aspect to our unit. And for me, I talk about rules of the road. They're international guidelines based on big collected data. So you got to drive 60 kilometers in this area and 80 kilometers. Those are the rules. You have to wear a seatbelt. A seatbelt does not prevent an accident, it protects you if you're in it. So there are rules, okay, but there are changes in guidelines. So in other words, it's not one size fits all. So, for example, I know we're going to touch on medicinal cannabinoids just now. The fact of the matter is some things can help with supportive care. They may not be the 100% on treatment. Yeah. We have chemotherapeutic agents that are made purely naturally from flowers, okay, and tree bark, but now we produce them chemically. Yeah. So there are lots of things in nature.
Come back to this issue of cannabis oil, because I mean we played this, but let's give Prof. Solomon an opportunity to add to the discussion. We've shown that concept of cryoablation.
Yes.
Do you want to just take us further?
Yes. We have opportunity to study that subject. We went to Israel, came back 2 months ago, and this technology is extremely effective. As per the input we received from the company, it's already working in the United States and other places. The specialty of this technology for this company is they make sure that the nitrogen, for example, stays liquid and not become a gas, which could create a danger. And with the help of screening, you see exactly where the growth is. It's limited to up to 1.5 centimeters size. Usually the majority of this early stage cancer is up to that size. And the injection simply goes into, with the guideline of the screen, the liquid nitrogen just destroys it completely.
Now,
without
is it first-line therapy?
Trial.
I'm sorry?
Is it first-line therapy from the studies that you've done?
Yes, it's a complementary therapy, and it goes together with the other supplement. For example, you destroy this growth without any cosmetic or side effect at all. It takes 20 to 30 minutes, and then women can go out to work, back to work. But there has to be a follow-up, and the follow-up of this trial, which was just released this year, the FDA approved it in this February this year, is showing that after 2 years follow-up, higher than 99% is no occurrence. Some of the patient did medication and radiation, but at the end of the day, higher than 99%, no follow-up.
I just wish you had so much time, but
Frost
just
trial. So the trial he's talking about. So basically the fact of the matter is this is not level 1 evidence, it's in trial. So 20 years ago, I trained on cryosurgery. It's been around for a long time. It's not new, okay? We are recognizing that not all cancers require the scalpel. So for certain types of breast cancers that are low-grade cancers, what you can do is you can cryoablate them under a trial concept and follow them up on something as simple as tamoxifen. It's called the Frost trial. Okay, so I think what is important is we're becoming less narrow-minded from a medical aspect in terms of how to manage things, and that there's a place for everything. For example, I have ladies over 70 who I never operate on. I put them on tamoxifen, and a lot of them, their cancers never grow. They disappear and go away. So it's not one size fits all, and that's exactly my point earlier. So there is definitely a place for this, and I think the important thing, so we, for example, are doing intraoperative radiation on our patients. There's a bit of a, people don't want it in the medical fraternity because they have big machines and this, but the concept is there's a place for everything as long as it's done through sensible, regulated, patient-informed ways, okay, with people understanding the risks and benefit of each treatment.
That's a good place to go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on support for people with breast and cervical cancer. Please stay with us.
Unfair dismissal, car accident, court appearance. Let Clientele Legal tackle your legal problems. Whether it is a car accident, unfair dismissal, uncontested divorce, unfair blacklisting, or a wrongful arrest, we have tough professional lawyers standing by to assist you.
With the help of Clientele Legal, I kept my job and I can support my family.
I definitely got value for money. It didn't cost me a cent, just my monthly premium.
There was one man with his lawyer against a big bank and I won.
Car accident, faulty goods or bad service.
You fired!
Unfair dismissal. No matter how big or small your legal problems, don't tackle them by yourself. Clientele Legal will do the tough work for you. SMS RIGHT to 32281 and we'll call you back.
What guides us? Is it something you can see?
We need deliverance from sin because God never
Hear?
carry on working to spread the message
Feel?
to the whole world.
Or touch? What leads us onto greater experiences? Is it the words of our sacred texts? The advice of our elders? Or is it the actions of our people? The strength of our beliefs? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Lots of challenges when it comes to cancer screening and treatment, especially in the public sector, have flooded the media recently.
We are lacking in terms of the facilities in our government hospitals. I mean, we were shocked quite recently with the revelations that in KwaZulu-Natal, you didn't have a single oncologist available in your government hospitals. Fortunately, that has been corrected to some extent. But I don't think we are placing the kind of emphasis on cancer as a killer than we do on HIV and AIDS, for example, or any other disease. So I think it's about time, when one looks at the statistics, that we have to place a lot more attention on cancer prevention and treatment, and also in the last stages ensuring that we support organizations like hospices, because a number of people are discharged from hospital and told to go home and die. And fortunately, I have the experience of hospice. I've been chairman of the Kanya Hospice on the South Coast for the past 10 years, and we see what happens out there. We go to rural areas. We find that people cannot take medication because they don't have food, they don't have proper conditions. So we need to ensure that we support hospices as government, because hospices provide a much needed support to our communities.
Stage 3 breast cancer survivor Adi Lang has made it her mission to spread awareness about all the treatment options available to newly diagnosed cancer patients through her Forever Changed global awareness campaign.
Why and how the campaign first began. There's 3 simple points. The first one is as a result of my late-stage cancer diagnosis in 2014, which was originally misdiagnosed, a case of medical negligence that would have taken between 5 to 7 years to get to court. So, learning to understand what it means to know and exercise your health rights, and ask as many questions as needed, and go for second or even third opinions. The second thing is a global warning, to be reminded of the choices that we all have, especially when it comes to cancer treatment options. And the third is a roadmap for newly diagnosed cancer warriors to understand all the implications of treatments and make informed decisions, whether it is conventional oncology treatment or integrated or simply holistic.
Through the campaign, there are calls for a workplace policy on cancer.
Corporate wellness that includes workplace wellness irrespective of the size of a business or enterprise. Encouraging companies to implement more effective wellness days throughout the year that make a difference to those going through cancer, and do more for pre-screening and early detection. In the UK, cancer is acknowledged as a disability in the workplace. The need for a formal cancer policy in South Africa is obvious. However, the absence of a policy does not negate our responsibility as responsible corporate citizens, despite the ongoing awareness campaigns, including millions spent on research. People are still dying from cancer.
People are still dying from cancer, and before they die, how well are they supported? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about now. We still have our guest, Professor Carol Ann Ben, head of the Helen Joseph Breast Clinic, and we're now joined by Adi Lang, the lady that you've just seen in the clip that we're playing. Adi Lang is founder of Forever Changed Global Awareness Campaign. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thank you so much.
All right. And of course, we still have Dr. Murifi, Medical Director of Genesis. Now, perhaps let's start with you both.
Sure.
And we've spent quite a bit of time talking about treatment and treatment options and so on.
Yeah.
But for people that have been diagnosed with cancer, what sort of support is there out there for
them?
I
think not nearly enough. So I first want to comment on your very good clip. I think it's your body, not the doctor's. You're entitled to absolutely, even in government and private, more than one opinion. Take time with your decisions. Cancer is not Little Shop of Horrors running around your body in 24 hours. Make sure you understand all the options, and again, a multidisciplinary approach, which includes also understanding what's out there, but which may not be part of what you are geared towards medically. So supportive care, we have breast health foundations doing awareness and access. We saw a clip there, Pink Drive. We have organizations. The butterfly concept is around survivorship, and I think that's the most poorly managed. It's the concept that once you are diagnosed, I have a team of 9 navigators that navigate people through their journey, and trained in the US. There's a training platform on survivorship GPs, and I've got one for breast, but we need it for all cancers, where it's not just me treating or surgically or chemos or radiation, but afterwards, who's managing you through your side effects of the treatment, managing life thereafter. I've written 2 articles. Alice in Wonderland, Down the Rabbit Hole, is your diagnosis, your strange world, and Through the Looking Glass is looking back and working out you can't change time, you can't change the past, and how you move forward. So I think it's critical.
Okay. Let's speak to Adi. I mean, you're a breast cancer survivor yourself, as we learned in the clip. Give us your ideas or your thoughts on the support for breast cancer.
Right, so when I was first diagnosed, I never believed that I had a choice other than having a mastectomy and chemotherapy. And whilst it sounds great of what you're saying, not everybody gets to meet you. So not everybody gets that kind of support and help along the way. Had I met you earlier, perhaps I would have chosen a different route. But as things are, life in the world of cancer is only one that a cancer survivor themselves can explain and know. David and myself are accredited cancer coaches. We don't believe that anyone who has not walked in the actual walk of a cancer warrior understands or knows how to advise somebody else going through the journey. So we are the first official accredited cancer coaches in the country.
So what does that mean? I mean, what do you tell people of all options open?
It means that we have something different to tell, other than a scientific medical background.
Is that what it is?
Is it an online course?
It's not an online course. We actually meet people. We meet people through corporations. And we change the lives of cancer survivors, particularly in the workplace. We have turned the cancer world around in the last 4 years. We have a global campaign. We have a very large following. And there are choices of treatment options.
Yeah. I just want to get this clear. I mean, you tell the other side. The other side means the complementary side.
What it means to live with cancer.
Yeah.
How do you live a life after diagnosis?
Right.
That's really what it's about.
You wanted to ask a question?
So I just wanted the cancer coach, because there are many systems set up throughout the world. So is it like a cancer navigation? It's a course so other people can do it, because I think the thing that I really realize in life is one person does not make an army. It might be a general, but it's not an army. So to move things forward, we need to train more people.
Absolutely. We have many training programs. We train the trainer. We work in corporates. We work in the private sector. Forever Changed is becoming a very well-known organization globally.
That's
good. Right. Right. Let's hear from Dr. Malefi. I mean, your thoughts on support. Earlier you touched on it, a little bit. Do you want to just perhaps expand on it a bit?
Yeah, thank you. At Genesis, we are very passionate about the whole concept of shared decision making. We believe that cancer diagnosis, cancer treatment, cancer support involves everybody. It involves the patient, involves the family, involves the caregiver, all sorts of caregiver, the GP, up till the oncologist, the specialist. It also involves your colleagues at the workplace. So we believe the whole concept of shared decision making gives an opportunity for all stakeholders to have a coordinated approach as to what the patient actually requires. So we believe that is actually a lever to be able to enhance that.
How do you do it? How does it work?
The uptake that we actually say is poor. Now, start number one, when it actually comes to screening.
Before we run out of time, you have some event that you're launching your program. Just tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. Just quickly, just before getting on, just have to say that we believe a whole lot in the creation and the dissemination of decision aids, whether it be audio visual, interactive, and so on, to get people involved. And we also to be able to have to disseminate programs. I mean, a typical example will be quite strongly. I mean, in a lot of patients that I actually have known that have got breast cancer, a lot of them don't even know that something is.
We really are running out of time, and we're not going to have an opportunity to tell us about your event.
Yeah, we have an event on the 27th of July. We have a cancer awareness a music concert fundraising event at the Emperor's Palace, where we're actually going to be publicizing Genesis in terms of what it represents and where we focused in terms of enhancing uptake into programs.
Okay, I think that's a very good point to end our discussion on. I wish we just had ample time. We, unfortunately our time is limited. I want to thank you, all of you, for your contribution, and thank you so much for your time. All right, folk, you folk at home, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned as much as we all learned. And we're back on your screens again next week, same time. And remember, if you've missed any of our previous shows, you can download them on the YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Sello Mutong, and until next time, please do take care.